I'm Jack Ketel from Kelowna, British Columbia, and I'm a CJF.
You know, the very essence of the mental game is this. The only reason an event matters is because we make it matter.
Welcome to the Mullins Farrier podcast.
Every horse, whatever it was doing, had a season. Once their competition season finished, they took the shoes off, they chucked it out in the field with some other horses, and it had a 2, maybe 3 months period where it went and remembered what being a horse was all about.
Even in a cheaper area, your prices should be set by your skill level, by your experience. And some people might not feel that they're worth, as much as others. But if you're only charging $160 to shoe a horse, then the only way you're making money is on your trims.
The WCB was a way to make sure that you kept the trade alive. I think I'm a custodian of the trade, so it's like we have to keep it going.
It was hard, but you adapt and overcome, and that probably gets to me where I am now. It's problem solving, horseshoeing's problem solving, and back in the day it was problem solving how to be as strong as the older apprentices. So it's all about adapting and overcoming, which was good.
I know we learn every day, but you do have to put yourself outside the box and just continue to learn, which is why I was just trying to do my fellowship, because I still have apprentices, and if I stay at my AW, I'm stagnant.
Welcome, everyone. Well, at this point, the fires have all cooled, and the winners have gone home with their medals from the World Championships at Spruce Meadows Masters Tournament in Calgary, Alberta. Today's interview was recorded way back at the beginning of the year at the Hoof Care Summit in Cincinnati, Ohio, and you will hear Jack say that competing at the World Championships blacksmith competition was on his bucket list. I'm happy to report that he did make the list. As I'm recording this before heading out there and before the competition, I apologize, but I can't tell you how he did. Speaking of international farrier competitions, do you have your flights booked yet for the International at Stoneleigh in England? It's coming up quickly, and you might as well attend the Focus Convention while you're there. Go to forgeandfarrier.co.uk for more details. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Spencer and his team at Out West Design and Fabrication, where they build farrier bodies, custom interiors, and vet boxes, and just about anything else you can come up with. I have seen many of their finished products and spoken to many of their happy clients. So happy, in fact, that it inspired me to use them for my next project. Check them out on Facebook at Out West Design and Fabrication. As you listen to today's guest, you may think that you accidentally changed your podcast app's speed to double time, but that's just the speed that Jack Ketel's mind works at. I had only known this man by reputation for the many years that he had been on the Canadian team. And it was a true pleasure to finally get to meet him in person and have this conversation. As you will quickly come to realize, dust does not settle on this man, and he has a very unique ability to always make life an adventure. I found him quite inspiring, and I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did.
I also was fortunate enough to be able to purchase my diploma with the Worshipful Company of Farriers.
Right, yeah, and I'm one of those too.
Yeah, right. A bunch of us do have it, but it's for our progression of our other, maybe getting an AW or something like that.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
I figured I'd do it before they decided not to let us do it anymore.
Right. Yeah, not a bad idea.
That was really the reason why I did it.
So did you do that as soon as you kind of were able to? Once you got your CJF, did you apply and pay?
I did. Yeah, that was one of my plans. It was kind of funny, actually. When I was growing up and being a farrier, my dad's kind of cow vet guy was like, well, Jack's a farrier, he should get certified. And I was always like, well, what's the point of being certified? Because I don't make any more money.
Right.
Really, it's all about the clients, what you get done and how you run your business. And then Russ kind of convinced me to get certified.
Now, this is Russ Floyd for all
Russ
those
Floyd.
Listening. Yep.
So me and my wife actually both went and got certified. She got her CF and I got my CJF because I had my CF before from way ago.
Okay.
And then I got my diploma. as soon as I was able to, because when I was in Australia, because I was in Australia for a year.
You shoeing there for a year?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
cool.
went to Australia for a year. I was shoeing for about 6 months in Australia, and then I worked at a cattle station. But when I was shoeing, I was limited to the jobs I could do because working at the racetracks, you had to be a certified farrier in Australia. They accept a diploma with the Worshipful Company of Farriers.
Okay.
But I didn't have one. And there are cool gigs in like Sydney and Brisbane where the tracks are massive and you could go work under another farrier and just do like contract work. And you'd be like, yeah, quick, do 5 sets in the morning. They pay you $120 a set. I don't know how much the boss is getting. And then you're good to go. Like if you're on a holiday working visa, you hop over there, do some quick contract work, go hit the beach the rest
I was
of the
just
day.
going to say, yeah, go surfing for the afternoon.
But I wasn't able to do that because I didn't have that
Right.
one thing. Right?
Yep.
So,
The things you figure out way too late.
yeah.
So what got you to Australia? How did that happen?
Oh, that's a long story.
And how far into your career is this? Because that can't be easy to just uproot and disappear.
No,
for
it
a
isn't.
year. As a matter of fact.
As a matter of fact, no, I was, I started out, I went to Olds College. I was a rodeo guy.
Okay.
And I thought in my smart young mind, I was going to be a farrier so I could shoe horses during the week and ride bulls and bareback horses on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Olds College because they had the farrier program.
Yeah.
And so I went there. That's where I met Russ and Matt Kuchler and Dr. Colanderette. We were all in the same class, right?
Oh, cool.
And Stuart Lambert and a bunch of great guys. We had a crazy awesome class and we're really competitive,
kidding.
right? So I was riding bulls and my first half, I was like, all you got to do is know how to shoe horses. Forging is stupid. Until I was lucky enough that I made like the top 5. So top 4 or 5, whatever it was, to be on the ground crew for the world championships that year.
No way.
Right? So,
Yeah.
And I also had because you had to do your summer work thing at that time. So I worked with Steve Dixon 1 day a week and Ian Ritchie 4 days a week. I was Ian Ritchie's first apprentice. So then it blew my mind. Number one, I went from Central Manitoba Cattle Ranch to Olds College to Maple Ridge, British Columbia, like a big city, shoeing horses. Like the second time I ever saw an English horse. And there's actually females riding horses. And I'm like, what do they know about riding horses? Because the only people who rode is just guys and cowboys and some barrel racers.
Right.
And then you got all these females jumping and doing dressage, which I'd never really seen before. And then the competition stuff was pretty popular down on the coast.
Yeah.
And then you see the world championships. Holy, geez, that just changes your mindset.
No kidding.
Right? Then all of a sudden rodeoing sucks in British Columbia because it totally does. So when you're on the prairies, you're hitting like 3, 4, 5 rodeos in a weekend, especially in the summer. In British Columbia, everything's so far away in the mountains, the driving sucks. You'd maybe hit 1 or 2 rodeos in a weekend if you could do that. And they have hardly any rodeos. I mean, you're doing on the prairies, you're doing bull ridings, you're doing the CCA, the MRCA, you're like, just the amateur or semi-pro, whatever they did.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's like Saskatchewan, Manitoba, bit of Alberta. You go into Montana, that's when they're just starting the rough stock rodeos where it was like, we always said it was the 3 rough stock things, then barrel racing. So you had somebody to 2-step at the rodeo dance. Anyways, so, you go see that and you're like, that's pretty cool. Cause it wasn't like, my first thought was like, most farriers are just old guys and then they're having a competition. Whoop-de-doo.
Right.
But there's a bunch of young guys or like studs, they're going knocking shoes out, shoeing horses. It looked pretty badass. It was cool. So that changed my mindset a bit. So I started doing a lot more forging.
When you went back to school, did that change?
When I was working with Ian, then I actually started practicing a bit more. And then when I went back to school, I concentrated on forging more than rodeoing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I could do the college rodeo stuff and other bull ridings, but I just kind of actually didn't go to some of that and just practiced. So then that changed my mentality a bit. Then after college, I went back to Manitoba because I thought I'd start horseshoeing out there. I was kind of central Manitoba, so for I think it was about 2 or 3 years, I was shoeing horses in like the Dauphin area, Dauphin, Swan River, kind of a little bit in Regina a bit too and stuff, just kind of wherever I was rodeoing. So I'd shoe horses and I'd rodeo during the summer, and then the winter, there's like no work. So for
Everybody
shoeing
pulls their
horses at all,
shoes and
yeah, everybody pulls their shoes. Might get
forget
some
they
trims.
own a horse. Yeah.
So I actually got a job working for the Canadian Food Inspection Agency,
Really?
testing cattle for tuberculosis and mad cow disease. That's right when mad cow disease hit.
Right.
I did that kind of on the border seasons of calving out cows because my dad had a big cattle ranch. So then I'd spend 2 months, like January, February, beginning of March, calving cows out with my dad. And that's like a 24/7 thing. And then spring would come again and I'd be like, adios, amigos.
Time to shoe some horses.
It's time to go shoe horses and rodeo again and do that. So I did that for a couple of years. But the problem was mad cow disease hit.
Yeah.
Right?
Devastated
the cattle industry. And I saw it firsthand because on the border seasons, I was working for the Canadian Food Inspection Agency.
Right.
So I would go to every single place and we had to run the cattle in like twice, all their cattle. So you talk to all these ranchers and stuff and you'd hear everything that's happening, right? They're mad at us, number one, because we're the government.
Yeah. A face to the enemy. Yeah.
You know, the regulatory body of their freedom, right?
Yeah.
It was interesting hearing their perspectives and how the economy is going down. And also the PMU farms, the pregnant mare urine farms, was very popular in that area. And at the same time, they switched to synthetic and shut all them down. So the economy in that part of Saskatchewan and Manitoba, in the agricultural areas, just boom, it busted. There was none. They were shipping horses off for meat in Japan. Or why would you pay someone to trim or shoe a horse when there's so many horses, they just shoot them? Like, it don't make a difference.
Right.
And cattle weren't worth anything. When I was working for the CFIA, we'd pay them $70 a head per cow to test them. And the only way to test a cattle for mad cow disease is to take a sample of its brainstem where it connects to the brain. So the animal has to be dead.
Right.
So we would just go around and they would just shoot cattle and then we would take samples.
So they were just getting $70 a head.
They're getting $70 a head because they would get just as much there from the government doing that than selling them at the auction at the time.
That's wild.
So anyways, that was the economy there. And then also at that time in my rodeo career, I had dislocated my free arm. So I had a bull riding in Alberta and it never really healed. I kept dislocating it. Half the time it'd dislocate. And so you're riding a bull and your shoulder's dislocated and it hurts. And then you got to get off. And, you know, and then like the last one was a spring of, I forget what it was. And I won a bull riding. I didn't even know I won it because I was in the hospital getting my shoulder put back in again.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So I just called it quits. I was broke anyways. And I was lucky enough. I was talking to, kind of kept in touch because when I was on the coast initially at the first time, it was Adam Dagenstein and Blair Bartlett. They were both apprenticing. Like Adam was apprenticing with Bruce Haig and Blair Bartlett, he was working with James Findler and he was just leaving from working with James. He was running his own business. So I was talking to him and I said, hey, buddy, you think you get me an in? So he got me in and I started working for James 3 days a week. I moved to the coast, started working for James 3 days a week.
Okay.
So I did that for years, doing that. And that what kind of got me competing more. You know, James, obviously, he'll help you with your competing and in with that competing group over in BC.
Mm-hmm.
So then I did that and then built up. And then I qualified for the team 3 years in a row, 08, 09, 2010. But that was when like you had the world championships in July. And then, you know, we were just talking to the guy in the elevator there, figuring out when the international is.
Right.
And there's a reason for that because it used to be in August.
Right.
So then if you want to be like a big competitive farrier, you didn't have much of a business.
No. You're leaving so much time in the middle of your busiest season, right?
Right. So if you do it 3 consecutive years in a row, sometimes you don't really have much of a business to come home to.
Yeah.
You know, and I wasn't much of a businessman then. I loved shoeing horses. I loved going to competitions. At that time, I loved partying. My wife now, Shelby, she's a certified farrier with the AFA. But me and her, we used to party all the time together, right? Back then, I was with the kind of the horseshoers and the cowboy guys. And she was a eventer and played rugby.
Oh, okay.
So you can imagine the parties were always good, right? And the
no matter who you hung out with.
Yeah, exactly. It was fall of 2010. I was just burnt out, done. And I was like, you know, I was just kind of home and I was kind of missing some clients and stuff. And I decided to go home for Thanksgiving, but I didn't tell anybody. So I went home for Thanksgiving and I didn't tell anybody. Everybody's like, where's Jack? Where's Jack? at the time, I think I was in a little bit of low point, so I didn't think anybody cared, right?
Mm.
So I was there, and then my brother was there, and he was just finishing up his engineering degree because he had a diploma in engineering. He is upgrading to be a professional engineer over in Thunder Bay at the university there.
Okay,
And he was there with his wife and the kids. And he's like, hey, do you want to hop in? Because I flew out. He's like, hey, you want to hop in the vehicle and come with us to Thunder Bay and hang out? I said, yeah, sure, because I don't think I got much of a clientele left. Might as well. So I hopped in the vehicle. I went to Thunder Bay with my brother. So there's
Just
all my
on a
stuff
whim.
at home, and guys are like, where you at? Oh, I'm just hanging out with my family, you know? So I went to Thunder Bay with my brother, and I hung out there for 2 weeks. And then I was like, kind of want to go to Australia, but let's be realistic. You're pretty ignorant if you haven't seen your own country, and you're going to go to a whole nother continent and check it out. So I went from Thunder Bay, hopped on a plane, and went to Halifax. And I went to Halifax and kind of hung out there and partied for about 2-3 weeks. So I was there, and then I met this other person. So me and this lady, we went and hitchhiked from Halifax all the way to the other end of Prince Edward Island. And we went all over Prince Edward Island and Cape Breton and stuff. And then when we're in Prince Edward Island, we're there for Halloween or whatever it was. And we're partying down on whatever the strip was there. And we met this other guy. And he was a chef up in the tree planting camps up in northern BC. That's what he was doing. But he was just traveling the country too. So it was actually ironic. So the girl was a lesbian. The guy, the chef up there, was a gay guy. And then there's me, a redneck straight guy. Then he had a Jeep, so we hopped in this Jeep. So it was really interesting because she's a hippie chick from Toronto. So you can imagine there was like this weird culture, everything happening there. And it was totally like, who would ever thought you'd meet up with these people and just travel Canada? And we hopped in his Jeep. And then we went traveling from Newfoundland all the way back across to Toronto. And we stopped in every single town and hostel and everywhere, like Trois-Rivières and Quebec City and Montreal and everywhere in between until I hit Toronto. And then I hit Toronto, and then I think I called up Jesse Goff or Tom Barnett. And I was like, hey guys, I'm in Toronto. Come pick me up. I'm going to hang out. They're like, what the heck? All right.
Where'd you come from?
Yeah, anyway, so then I hung out with those guys. It was great. Hit a competition in Ontario, and then I forget who I was working with at, like, hanging out and kind of shoeing some horses. Then we're like, let's go to Cuba. So me and Russ Gaudette and Stuart Bruce and Tom Barnett all hopped on an all-inclusive 5-day quick trip over to Cuba. That was a riot.
Cuba would never be the same.
Nope, it wasn't. Neither was Tom. Tom had a great time. We all did, and we all made it back safely. It was excellent. And then I hopped on a plane and went back and cleaned up the mess I left at home. But then I cleaned up and then I visited Adam Dagenstein over in the Okanagan for a little bit because I figured I might move there eventually. And then I went back home, cabbed out cows for the winter, and then hopped on a plane to Australia for a year because I met Dean Lewis.
Yeah.
He's an associate, right?
Okay.
Now. But I met him over at the World Championships one of those years, and I just called him up and said, Dino, you mind if I come and hang out with you? He's like, sure. He's super generous, awesome guy.
Yeah.
So I hopped on the plane over to Melbourne, and he picked me up. His wife did, and we went over, and I shod horses with him for a bunch in Australia. And then we were like cruising around, like he's in the province or state of Victoria. And then we're cruising through this bit. It was kind of winter, which is our summer. And I saw some snow, and I'm like, all right, Dino, I've been with you too long. Like, if I'm in Australia and I see some snow on the side of a hill, like, I'm out. Is there like a warmer place? So he's like, well, yeah, you go up with Fred Savage. So I hooked up with Fred Savage. I hopped on a plane from there, went up to Mackay, which is in Queensland, northern Queensland, and went shoeing with him for a bit. Sadly, Fred passed away a couple of years ago, but went shoeing with him, and it was awesome because instead of it being like kind of winterish, rainy, it was like you walked out of his house and there's like mandarin orange trees growing there. You just grab an orange and all different fruit, and you go jogging, and it's among like sugarcane fields and totally different culture. And then I went from there, and I went down to, I was getting ready for the ECA. So anyways, I hung out with Ben Affleck, Farrier down in the Brisbane area.
Not Batman?
Not Batman.
Okay,
no.
The other Ben Affleck?
Yeah, I think he's actually, I think he was originally from Ireland or something. I forget. Anyways, and he immigrated to Australia way back in the day, but that guy has stories, let me tell you, like way back in the day. Anyways, so him and this guy in Canberra I worked with, and then I hit the ECA, and then I went and hit the Adelaide contest. So I hopped on down to South Australia and hung out with Chris Francis. Sadly, he just passed away the other day too.
Oh, man.
Hung out with him and a couple other guys down there, and then hopped on a train and went to Perth and hit their contest and hung out with Matty Smiles and that crew over there. Great guys. And then I was there and I was like, oh man, shoeing's good, but I've done it like forever. And I kind of get the idea of what shoeing's like in Australia. So I applied for a job at a cattle station, see if anybody will hire me. And I got a job for 6 months working for Kidman Cattle Company at Glengyle Station. This station was like 1.2 million acres with 10,000 head of cattle.
Oh my gosh.
It was a small station for the area because everything else is way bigger. I worked there just like basically cowboying. We call this ringers. That's what you call it because you're bringing up cattle, but just on horseback, gathering cattle and stuff. And you'd be out in the bush for like 2 weeks. They have labor laws in Australia, which are kind of cool. So the longest they can make you work is 13 days straight in a row.
Okay. You're just camping out.
What they do is that they have like a trailer that has the kitchen on it.
Mm-hmm.
They bring it out there with the grader. There's a grader guy who has to keep up the roads, right? Because the place is like the size of a township.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So then they'd set up camp, and then you'd be out there with your string of horses, and then you'd like go and gather cattle. You'd have a massive paddock that's like hundreds of thousands of acres, and then you go gather cattle. So there'd be 5 of us on horseback, and we just sit there doing nothing. And a guy in a Cessna airplane, and he would fly it around like a dogfighter, from like World War I, chasing cattle off the water. And then he'd push them out of the places with the trees and stuff. And then there'd be the head stockman and the manager would be on dirt bikes. And then they'd bring all the cattle to us who are on horseback. And then we'd sit there. Then we'd just block up the cattle until the guy in the airplane radioed down and said, yep, this corner is empty of cattle. Then we'd start walking the cattle. And then the guys on the plane would keep pushing cattle off, and the guys on dirt bikes would keep bringing the cattle to us until we cleared out the whole paddock. So then we'd be walking like a mob of cattle, like, 1,200 head. And so you had one guy at the head of the herd. The healthiest and fastest ones don't take off.
Right. Okay.
And then the horses would run flanks, the sides, and then the dirt bikes would do drag because that'd be the most work. Like at the back, bringing them up because it'd be like the lame stuff, the little calves and stuff like that. And then the guy who was in the airplane would go land it, it'd grab a big truck and come up behind. And then any of the calves that couldn't keep walking, we'd throw them in the back.
Right. Okay.
And then we'd push them all up. And if we didn't have to walk them a couple days, because sometimes you'd have to stop them, block them up on like feed, and then block them up on water, and then put them in a holding pen. And then the next morning, block them up on feed and water again, and then walk them all day again, until you get to your big sorting area. And then we'd have to sort them all, brand them, and sort them as in like any steers that were over a certain weight would go one way, and the calves that weren't branded would be branded. And then we'd do all that cowboy stuff, right?
Wow.
So anyways, did that for 6 months. So that's pretty fun. And then went back, hung out with Dino, and then flew back home. So when I got home, so this is 2012 now, Shelby, lucky enough, was still dating me. So she liked me. We came up and I said to Shelby, okay, either I'm thinking of 2 places because now, I'm going to set up again. It won't be the Lower Mainland because, the rain and the traffic wasn't really my style.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little different culture too from where I grew up, but anywhere it is, I guess, if you grew up in nowhere, Manitoba.
Right.
So I said either we're going to go to the Ottawa Valley.
Right.
Because it's kind of like that triangle. You're close to Ottawa. There's always going to be money. But you're also close to Toronto, Montreal. That was my thought, right? For sport horses.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm going to go to Kelowna because I always like Kelowna. So we picked Kelowna because it's closer to her for her family and not that far from home.
Mm-hmm.
So it worked out great. We didn't have to go to the other side of the country. And then we started up a business there. So we've been there for 10 years now, coming on 11, and it's been very successful.
So when you met your wife, had she already been shoeing?
So when I first met her, she wasn't shoeing.
She was an eventer.
She was an eventer and working at a barn and stuff like that. And I think her story is that she ended up selling a horse, and the person who she sold one of the horses to said, you know what, there's not a big life in working at a barn or being a trainer. You should go get educated or get a trade. So she's like, okay. And then she's like, well, I'll be a farrier. So she went to farrier school in Kwantlen and
Okay.
down in the Lower Mainland. And then when she came out, she's working with James Findler and Randy, I forget his last name, down there. Yeah. And then she moved out with me when I came back from Australia.
Okay.
Yeah. So she was a farrier. And then when we first started out in Kelowna, like you started in a new spot, you don't get clients right away, right? First of all, of course, the local farriers don't want you there because you're coming in on their territory.
Yeah, right.
So you got a lot to prove and convince clients that you aren't as bad as the other farriers say you are, or the other way, whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it is, and nobody knows you either, right? A lot of farriers, they like grow up in an area, then they shoe in that area or come back and shoe in it.
So they
and
have the benefit
already
of all
have
those
the in,
connections,
right?
Yeah.
So when we first got there, neither of us, like I didn't have any work, she didn't have any work, and back then it was hard to get jobs in Kelowna. Like I don't know what it was like a cliquey little town. You had to know someone to get something. So I got my security license and I started doing security. So I did security at night. I did event security, and during the winter I did casino security.
Okay.
I worked at the casino at night, so I'd be like 3 or 4:30 in the afternoon until 1:30 to 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd be at the casino working. Not working, standing there watching people lose their money. And Shelby, I think she worked at M&M Meats for a bit, and then we got her in with the local vet. Working at that place at a thoroughbred breeding farm / vet office. So she was working there.
Which is a good in.
So the first year, by the spring of the second year I was there, because I kind of got there in June or July of 2012. So 2013, I had enough work that I didn't have to work at the casino anymore.
Okay.
Which is perfect or I was busy enough that I couldn't work at the casino anymore. That's what it really worked out to be. We did that. And then 2 years after that, I was busy enough that I told Shelby, I was lucky enough to convince her, we should just work together, shoe horses. And then I don't need to hire an apprentice or anything like that.
Yeah.
And we did that and it worked out great. We've been working together every day, 5 days a week since then. So probably about 7-8 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I met another couple from Australia that were here at Summit, and they were talking about it, that they worked together, and they've done that for 3 years now, I think. Like, how do you overcome the challenges of being with that person all day, and you get work-related stresses and things don't always go great, and then you go home and you're still with that same person? How does that work? Or is that not even an issue?
No, not really. Not for us, because we're friends so long before we were working together. We were friends for a long time, and then we're dating, and then we got married, and then we're working together. So I think that progression, that we have such a strong base, we know each other very well.
Yeah.
There's no real surprises or anything.
Right.
I would say the best thing about working together all the time is that when we're done work, we just go separate ways.
And that's what this couple said too. Yeah.
It's not like you're coming home from work and then the wife's like, I haven't seen you all week. Let's do something on the weekend. We're like, it's the weekend, rock on. Let's do other things.
Right.
Or we'll go skiing together, and then she goes out and does something, or I go do something. And so there's never an obligation to have that thing like, you got to spend time together, have quality time together, right?
Because you get that
we get that
already
all the time.
Okay. And combining forces like that, how did you sort out your rhythm of who does what? And
that is easy. We just work on each other's strong points, right?
Okay.
Shelby, she's great with the clients. She's an awesome horse handler, and she knows all the horses' names. She reads horses really well. She likes it when I'm kind of taking the forefront on the shoeing and stuff.
Okay.
And she doesn't feel like I'm overshadowing her or anything like that, because she's like, well, you've already been on the team 5 times. Like, why would I? You're a CJF. I'm just a CF. I'm just going to clinch. I'll do some invoicing stuff. I'll get the horses and pull shoes and barefoot trims. I think she can barefoot trim faster than me. But like, stuff like that. But when it's shoeing, I'm primarily doing a lot of the work.
Mm-hmm.
Her biggest thing is she just never wants to hurt a horse. So she doesn't really like some of the shoeing stuff. Well, she does, but she'd rather if I just do it because it's faster. It's more efficient.
Right.
And then we could be done work. We play polo now.
Really?
Well, yeah, we picked that up right before COVID, and then COVID hit, so we had nothing to do, so we just bought polo horses. So then after work, you're like, she's the boss, right? Because she's way better with like riding and everything like that than I am.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? But I'm working my 4 or 5 polo horses. She's working her 4. Then we do that.
Cool.
Or we do that beforehand. So we both have our dominant areas.
Right.
Because we have the farm. The farm's really hers. I got ideas, right? And I do stuff, but I leave the horse thing. That's her. I don't really get in her area
Okay.
too much. I do, but I don't like leave her as the boss.
Right.
Right. Everybody has their place.
Right. Oh, that's cool. I can see how that would work.
Mhm.
Yeah. So tell me what your experience being on the team was like. I guess being on it that many times, it would be a different dynamic with some of the years with different people. But what was that experience like for you? What were some of the standouts?
Every time has been different for sure. Because I've been on 2 teams where I was the only Western guy on the team.
Oh, really?
The rest was
Okay.
Eastern guys.
Yep.
But in 2008 was my rookie year, and as a young team, because it was really interesting because Dean Sinclair, who was our instructor at Farrier School, was on the team with me, Adam Dagenstein, Matt Kuchler. We were the members, and then Leon Litton was the alternate. And it was funny because me and Matt were in the same class, and then Adam was a year before us.
Okay.
And then Dean, who is our instructor, was on the team. So that was pretty cool for him. And then a year after me, or 2 years after me, was Leon over at Olds.
Mm-hmm.
So it was all that kind of crew.
Pretty
So
tight knit.
We were pretty tight knit.
Crew, yeah.
It was a pretty neat group of young guys who didn't really. It was my first time, so I had you aren't ready for that. You try your best, but you kind of need to go to actually see what's happening. Second time I was alternate. Matt was on the team with Stuart Bruce, Adam McQueen, and Tom Barnett.
Mm-hmm.
First time as alternate, I wouldn't go as alternate again, just because if you've been on the team full and
It's
then you
a
do
tough
alternate,
position to
it's
be
a tough,
in.
you're a little bit back, and yeah, you're making the shoes and stuff like that, but you aren't like on the team. You aren't in the team dynamics
Mhm.
as much as, because they're always working to get it happening, right?
Yeah.
Though, I mean, a perfect example of making sure you're ready as an alternate is Justin Fountain when James Findler broke his leg when he was on the team.
Right.
Right. And he stepped in and did an excellent job. So that was a different dynamic. It was interesting. And then in my mind, I said I'd never be an alternate again. So then that next team trials, it was interesting because the guys were showing up to the team trials as partners and wanting to get on with their partners. And I was like, yeah, watch this. So I practiced a whole bunch. And because there was Ian Ritchie and Ben Yeager, they got on the team for sure, obviously. And then Bruce Haig and Adam Dagenstein wanted to get on the team together. And I broke up their little marriage. And me and Blair Bartlett were practicing together. And Blair was on the team a couple of years ago, or years before I was on the team. And anyways, we practiced, and it was really awesome because it worked out to be that I think it was Ben Yeager, Ian Ritchie, or Bruce Haig, or however it worked out. And then I was on the team, and then Blair would have been alternate, but he's like, no, I don't want to do the team again. So Adam ended up being alternate that year.
Okay.
On the team. That was 2010. So that was a fun one. I partnered up with Bruce Haig.
Okay.
So that was a big learning curve. He's a really strong personality, really good forger, good guy. It was humbling for me, and it was a lot of hard work. It was good. So I had a good time over there that year. And then, I had to take the hiatus of rebuilding the business and everything like that and getting back into competition. So then I qualified again in 2015 over in Ontario. I'm just thinking AJ Masterlist was on the team that year.
Yep.
And Travis Buck, me and Travis, and Dan Corkery.
Right. Okay.
So that was pretty fun. That was a fun year. That was a good year. In me looking back on it, I didn't do as good as I think I should have. But that's me being a hard critic on myself.
Being a competitor,
of course.
period.
Being a competitor,
Yeah.
of course, I want to do way better, and I don't think I did good enough, and especially good enough for the team.
Okay.
So then, 2017, when I was on the team, lucky enough, it was me and Sarah Vanderpool, and then Johnny and Justin. And then I was really happy with the way that worked out. That was a good year. And that was a little different too, because, and then Johnny was the alternate. Johnny Edwards.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
Justin
Justin Fountain.
Fountain. Okay. Yeah.
Justin Fountain was on the team. And that was really good. That was a really good team. I really enjoyed that. And that Johnny Edwards, he's really handy forger and stuff. He's getting a lot of help from Ben Mangan.
Right.
So he helped me actually a lot with one of my shoes, the aluminum shoe, because he was making that as the alternate. You usually make all the gas shoes. So actually Johnny helped me out with a lot with that shoe. And it actually turned out real good when I was over there. He's like handing me buffing stuff as I'm like making it in the gas class, and we rocked it, right? But that's teamwork. That Johnny knew what he was about, and I had other shoes happening, and he got that one sorted out. So I kind of followed his lead on that, and that was cool, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the whole idea of a
team thing, right? And he had my back, so it was awesome. Johnny, he's a hand, right? So I don't know if he's going to be going into it again or not. And Sarah, she could thump out a bevel like nobody's business. And then those two guys, like Johnny Dixon and Justin Fountain, like they're brothers, right? They aren't brothers, but they might as well be brothers because they grew up in the back of Steve Dixon's Farrier rig,
right?
Basically, right? So they're pretty cool, like hanging out with all those guys, and it was a really fun year.
No kidding. So once you stopped competing at that like on the team and at that level, did you just go back to building up your business again, or where has your focus been after that?
Ironically, no.
You don't seem like a guy who settles down anywhere.
Well, you don't want
easily.
to, right? Because life gets too boring too quick. No, what ended up happening was that then when the team tryouts happened in 2018, I didn't qualify. I didn't practice enough for the Canadians at all. I just thought I'd ride off of the World Horseshoeing Classic, and I wasn't prepared. I had too many contests too close together, and it just kind of messed everything up just for my practicing, and that was my fault. I didn't put in the effort. I didn't get on the team. That was 2018. And then 2019, I didn't get on the team again. But I was determined to do more. I saw that what happened in 2018, and I figured I need to bring up my game more personally to play because everybody's getting better. I was stagnant or falling behind because it's easy to be in a top 5 when you think you're rocking it and you're always there, but then you're running the business too. So I went to more individual competitions after that because I was asked to be on a couple of other teams. I just said no. So I started hitting WCBs.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I started hitting WCBs and some other stuff. And I went with Dad Corkery to the Masters Cup once. He asked me and some other stuff. But I really started concentrating more on what I was doing to get better so that if I was on the team again and I was lucky enough to qualify again, that I'd do a good job.
You had more to add personally, right?
Yeah. But the thing is that as soon as it's a team, it's not about you anymore, right? It's about what the team gets done. And if you aren't good enough to be able to pick up everybody else, that means everybody else is picking you up.
And you don't want to be that guy.
And you want to pick each other up,
yeah.
But you don't want to be that guy, right? And if you've been on the team 5 times already, they expect things from you. So you got to make sure you're there, right? In my mind, there's that expectation. So then I started doing more individual contests, like hitting WCBs. I just want to bring up my game. So I did it like 2018, I did a year and I was doing good. And then I flopped over in Vegas at the end. And then I was like, screw that. And I came back in on 2019 and I did stupid mistakes at a couple contests, but I started getting really good traction at Bighorn, Wyoming. I won the match play. And then I went to Vegas and I finished 6th. And I was like, awesome. I got the traction. It was like Boxing Day sales for flights. I booked all my flights for all the WCBs, their whole series for 2020. And I was ready. I knew when the Canadians was. I had it all planned out. And then COVID hit and shut everything down. So, but during those times when I was in Kelowna, working on my business and doing that, every year, my gross income increased every single year because that was also a priority of mine.
Right.
I always said to myself, I don't want to be like that guy who doesn't have enough money or anything like that. When you get old and you're crippled and then you have to work till you're 75. That sucks.
Yeah.
Right. So me and Russ, we always talk about money, right? I find a lot of guys in the ferry industry don't talk about their business or the money enough because everybody's keeping close to their chest what they got happening here, there, anything like that. But with like a lot of the younger guys like Johnny Dixon and Russ and me and a couple of the guys, we talk pretty openly amongst ourselves about it.
Right.
And what we're doing. Tiny, Jason Wibletsky, over in Edmonton, he's a good businessman. And that guy, he runs a business and you talk to him, and it's good too. I was prioritizing these things and making sure you don't buy land, right? So stuff like that.
Yeah. And is that part of your kind of retirement idea is land, like that's your investment kind of thing? Is that what you mean?
Kelowna's been really good to us, to me and my wife. When we first showed up to Kelowna, we had $5,000 to our name. That's it. $5,000. Now we have a 9-acre property in the city of Kelowna.
Wow.
We have like 8 polo horses and 4 trucks and 2 trailers and a flat deck and a bobcat. And we have a rental condo as well. And I was on the team numerous times and I competed, did a bunch of stuff. So talking and networking with other farriers, doing as good work as you can and being as professional as you can. And my wife helped me out a lot with that. And running a great business, we've been lucky enough to be successful with what we do.
Right.
And still compete and have fun.
Well,
So
yeah.
trying to find that medium.
How do you organize because there's obviously a lot of practice that has to go into that when you're competing at those levels.
Yeah.
How do you balance that with work? Like, what do you do? Is it every day you're in the shop in the morning or the evening, or how do you work that out?
So ideally in Kelowna, you want to practice in the morning because it's so hot. And the hottest time of day is 6 o'clock in the evening.
Really? Oh,
right?
Okay.
In Kelowna. And then, obviously it cools down then, but in the summer, it's like 30 degrees.
Yeah.
Sometimes that could be positive. If you're going to go to Virginia, they used to have the contest in that WCB in Virginia, right?
Right. And you're conditioned for it.
I was conditioned for it. There are people from Virginia falling over. I was like, yeah, we're rocking. Me and the wife, we go hit up they had the Pabst Blue Ribbon beer tent over there. So I did the forging and I think I placed I don't know what I did, placed 5th or 3rd or something like that. And then we went up to a Pabst Blue Ribbon tent and his first time trying all these beers and it was all free. It was like, you pay $20, you get this cup. We went down one aisle while we could barely walk down the next. And we had to shoe the next day. But all these guys are collapsing the next day in the shoeing. And I I rocked it, But I had a good striker. Juan Marcos Scabi, I think that's his name. He was striking for me. Good guy. But he's Puerto Rican, so he could handle the heat too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there are other guys who are like, that year is super hot. They're just all falling over and being like, oh, I can barely handle it. Sorry, where I was going? Oh, with practicing. So ideally in the mornings, often I just end up doing it in the evening, but you have to make the time.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So I've gotten to the point where I just find that I don't like losing anymore. So I practice.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it is. And I learned a lot even over COVID. I learned quite a bit that you have to prioritize your time. And it's not about how many horses you get under. And now it's not about your gross product income, like what you have coming in. I made this past year, we worked less, but we put on like 8,000 miles on the Farrier rig from May until just the other day. I checked it because I only had one oil change last year, but I fired all the farther away people.
Right.
But we only made $7,000 less in a whole year.
You got rid
and
of all
I've been
those
off
expenses.
way earlier, getting off at like 4 p.m. or something, so I could go play polo.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of part of the reason, and especially in the summer and the evenings. But our profit margin is higher.
Yeah.
So I'm working less and I got a higher profit margin, but I had to do that because of gas prices and everything like that.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm making the same amount of money.
Yeah.
Right? Even though I gross less. And that's the first time in 10 years that I gross less in my business.
Right. It's almost like you're looking at the wrong marker.
I have a better lifestyle.
Yeah.
I'm happier. I feel better.
Yeah.
Right? My wife's happier because I'm not grumpy at the end of the long days.
Yeah.
I used to go everywhere. When I was there in Kelowna, I was shoeing in Revelstoke. I was shoeing in Merritt. Initially, we were still going to the coast and shoeing a couple of horses. We'd go all the way to Grand Forks, which is 2.5 hours away. I would go down to like a Soyuz and do some, or Karamias. And then I just kept bringing it in. Now we only have 3 days out of our whole rotation that we go out of the city of Kelowna.
Oh, wow.
So it's great. I'm fortunate. It didn't happen overnight. I can guarantee you that. And it's lucky that I live in a city that has the main amount of horses and barns. And my clients kind of keep coming to the city because that's where the money's at.
Right.
So.
Cool. Yeah, I found the exact same thing with my businesses. was able to contain it more and more, where I used to drive so far, and you think you're busy, so you must be doing well, but it's those fuel bills.
Just because you're busy doesn't mean you're making money.
Nope. They chew into that net big time.
Yeah.
So
Russ makes fun of me a little bit. He's like, yeah, whenever you do a talk or you talk, you're like, it's about the money. I'm here to make money. Well, yeah, I shoe horses to make a living for me and my wife. I'm selling my body.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you see the old Farrier. We're at the International Hoof Care Summit right now, and you see some of these old guys can barely walk.
I saw a lot of canes today.
Yeah. And I was talking to some of the Amish guys, and they're like, yeah, being here 2 days, I'm ready to get underneath the horse. I'm starting to get sore.
Yes.
Right? Everybody's ready to get back to work. We've been here for 2 days, right?
Yeah.
You have to make it worth your while. Or else you go get a better job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love working for myself. That's great. But then I go compare myself to, say, I have a brother who's an engineer.
Right, yeah.
And he makes $300 or whatever a year, and he gets however many sick days and paid vacation and all that kind of stuff.
And a retirement fund and
he gets the bonuses from all that. Well, you can put your effort into that too and have an awesome lifestyle. You're shoeing horses or doing whatever, but there's also that happy medium where you could be like, yeah, I like shoeing horses or I like foraging. You go get a job and then go do that too if you're good enough.
Just by hearing your whole life's journey, you've never been just stuck on one thing. If this isn't working for you, you just try something else and then make it work, like fit them all together.
I find that terrifying, being stuck on one thing and you just keep grinding away and it's not happening. And because you have to get it happening.
Yeah.
The only person to get it happening is you. So
right.
You have to be fluid. You have to keep going.
One of the things you said where everybody keeps getting better, and quite a few of the older guys that I talk to that used to compete or that still do, they talk about this plateau that they think is coming. And I wonder, from your perspective, do you think that it will just keep going higher and higher? Like a lot of these older guys, they won't get back into competing because they know they can't turn out the stuff that's happening now.
Yeah,
right?
some of them physically can't because they're worn out.
Well,
like mentally
too,
they could, but the eyesight isn't great anymore.
Yeah,
the elbows are half shot. It doesn't make a difference how fit you are. You aren't going to be as good as a 25 or 30-year-old when you're 60.
But they also say that if they compared their shoes that they were winning with 20 years ago to what's being turned in now, they wouldn't have.
Yeah, what I was winning with 10 years ago or whatever, what I qualified on a team for and what we're putting out at Stoneleigh is nothing to what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Like the finish on the feet, we were like, oh man, we got that buffing block. Getting it done. Hey guys, let's sneak a little bit of hoof oil on there and make sure the stewards don't see it. You know, if you ain't cheating, you ain't winning.
Yeah.
You know, you're only cheating if you get caught. Now it's like you got to come up with a beanie sanding system.
That's
and
right.
If you don't have the 6,000 grit at the end and your leather buffer on there, like you still have to have the bones, right?
Yeah.
You have to have the basics, and
the
all has
judges
to be
talked
there.
about that
but
a
if
lot.
you're at the highest end, like everybody has the bones, everybody can trim. Then it's making an awesome shoe that fits that foot. So who's the fastest in making the best shoe to fit that foot and then get it spiked up there and make your specimen and get it done and finish it properly?
Yeah.
And convince the judge that he likes it. Right? Because you ain't shoeing for yourself. You're shoeing for the judge.
Yeah,
so
that's right. So you don't believe in that whole plateau idea then? You think it's going to just keep progressing? Or am I putting words in your mouth?
I would like to see it keep progressing.
Yeah.
Do I see there being this is it? No, I don't believe in a plateau. I think there'll be a blip down and then a blip back up because you'll find there's so much out there. There's so many products. There's the thing is we just need that new generation coming in. Who's behind Steve? Right? Because it was easy before. You had David Wilson and the Ferries and Grant, and then you had the O'Shaughnessy brothers coming up behind them, kicking them in the heels. And you had Paul Robinson and Verini and Devin Creer coming up, and all those guys just kept coming from the UK and stuff. And then the Americans, you had Jim Poor and Shane Carter, and then Austin's coming up behind, and then you got Bill Poor coming up, and then you got, and all those, and then you got Travis Coons coming in, all these guys coming in. So the Americans, they got some guys, they have that whole like farm team coming out of the WCB and the AFA, right?
Yep.
The Canadians, we hopefully have some guys coming up who want to stick with it and don't get, who want to compete. is there going to be a law where everybody's like, there's so much information out there, and then they just don't want to put the effort, or they find it a little easy to get to a certain point, and then they don't push past that? Maybe.
Yeah, right.
But I'm not a believer in any sets. Some people say there's a plateau. Yeah, I hope interest rates stop going up too.
Yeah.
You know? I tell you, a year ago, interest rates were going to stay low.
Yeah,
so
right.
House prices were going to keep skyrocketing. You tell me the people in Toronto are crying right now, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. You can't see in the future.
No.
You just plan for it. You try to plan for it. How do you plan for it? Practice harder.
Right.
Like, do better.
Yeah.
Save more money or make more money, right? That's the only way to, buy more land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just keep progressing.
Mm-hmm.
You're not somebody comfortable without it, I can see. As you've progressed with the competing, now you're at an event like this where admittedly it's not the same crowd as what you're used to in a competition or at convention. I had a lot of people actually say that to me, and I've actually seen a lot of pretty big name competitors walking around the trade show. What brought you here to this when it isn't usually your typical crowd?
Like, at this point, I was not on any teams. I don't know what series I'm going to compete at because not everybody put out their lists or anything yet, like all their schedules. So I saw this as an opportunity to come to this conference because I know for a fact maybe I'm on the team this year. Well, then I'm not at this conference.
Right. Yeah.
I'm practicing for the next contest.
Yeah.
Right now. I'm going to be somewhere else. So I saw an opportunity to come here. I kind of wanted to come. And that's the only reason why I came, because it's one event I haven't been to yet. I want to see what it was all about. A lot of people talk like, you could slag it a little bit. They're like, it's the gimmick conference. There's no hands-on stuff. It's all theory. You get a whole different crowd. No, it's a different crowd. Sure, it's a lot of people who I don't see at competitions. That's great.
Yeah.
It's good seeing all these people who, for other educational reasons, and I don't think it's a gimmick conference at all. You just see different ideas and different opportunities and other opportunities people took to make money in the farrier industry. Really, and filling different niches. We need those people.
Yeah.
What do I think of it? It hasn't finished yet. It's totally different. Would I come next year? No, because I'll go somewhere else. Maybe I'll come here once every 5 years.
Right.
The way I look at it, because I want to go to the AFA convention again. There's that. Before COVID, there's this cool convention in the Bahamas. I want to hit that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's one with vets and farriers. I think Mitch Taylor was going to talk at it and something else. And there's that one. It was on Facebook. I saw it advertised. And then they shut it all down because of, I don't even know if it'll come back, right? But there's other places to go. If the Workman Spring Games is coming up, well, then I'm going to be practicing to get ready for Workman Spring Games if that happens. Because I'd love to hit that up. And that's something similar to the AFA convention. It's not a convention, but it is. There's talks and there's a contest, right?
Yeah. And a completely different set of competitors.
The Europeans. The only time we get to really compete against the Europeans is at the Calgary Stampede, which the World Championships, which may be coming back this year. And then at Stoneleigh.
Yeah.
Right? But you don't see all of them. But those guys get the European Championships that we aren't allowed to go to. That I want to go to.
Yeah, right.
But you don't get to compete against those guys.
Right.
So there's no other contests out there that we could go to, the North Americans, to go compete at. I guess we could hit other countries like the Nordic Championships or something like that. I could plan. I'd like to. But there's no other big ones, right? You have to be on a team.
Right. Yeah. You're talking about you're shoeing for the judge. One of the things I saw at the International was it wasn't clear to a lot of the people going into it what those judges were going to be looking for. Are they interested in big, blocky shoes that look really cool, or are they interested in more of a finer shape and finer steel?
That's what you have a team manager for. Usually a team manager is like a chef de keep.
Right.
Right? So it'd be ideal if the team manager was an experienced competitor or had been or been in the industry for a long time who knows a lot of people. So when I was on the team, we had Dean Sinclair was our manager for the first year. We had Brad Davidson as our manager. We had Sean Elliott as our manager. Adam Dagenstein was a manager one year when he was alternate.
Okay.
So we had great people as managers who knew the competitors, who knew the judges, who talked to the people and stuff like that. So the idea would be is that the manager would be talking to the judges. He's at the meeting anyways.
Yeah, right.
You'd talk to the judges and then talk to other competitors who have already been under those judges
and
then know how they're going.
Right.
Right. So, but I've been in this for such a long time and I know most of who the judges are.
Right.
and what they're doing.
And what
So,
they're kind of looking for.
what they're looking for, right? And then go talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
They're sitting there by themselves,
It's your chance.
They're kind of half bored. You could chit chat with them a little bit and see what they're doing, but come up with intelligent questions. And don't be like, "Hey, tell me what you want." Be like, "Would you like to see it this way? I think I like to do this." Like, no, I like it this and this, and you get their styles and be personable. Don't drill them, and because a lot of them they get tired, right?
Yeah,
mentally, because they're judging all the time. So get them fresh before they start judging.
Yeah, right.
Don't get it in their way.
That's great advice. Have you seen trends in that sense? Like, has the judging changed, do you think, in a sense? As well, you were talking about these different generations sort of coming up. Has that changed, or is it a fairly standard for the most part? Like what they're looking for and...
Well, of course, because different guys will be looking for different things because they're coming out different generations of competing.
Yes.
Right? Of
Okay.
what was happening then and what they're seeing in their work or where they have been competing, the influence that has on them. So,
right.
Like this last year, you had the Dutch judge.
Yeah, Dower.
Dower's a great guy.
Yeah.
Right? But he shoots in Europe, right? And he's been to the world a couple times in European championships. His style's going to definitely be European.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? And I haven't seen a lot of that. It's different. You got to go to the Workman Spring Games to see what they're talking about, or the European Championships that they don't let us go to, or stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So they have their styles, and then they have like an English or style judge. They always have an English judge, right?
Yeah, he was from Scotland. Yeah.
Scotland, yeah.
Yeah, Ian Gazek.
Yeah. So then he has his style, right? That'd be more like that UK style. A little bit, right? So then, and then you figure out who has worked with him or judged underneath him, and you talk to people. That's the whole thing. You network.
Right.
Yeah. I learned that from James because I worked with James Fendler, right? So he taught me most everything I know about competing.
Okay.
And James, he's
legend.
He's a legend.
Yeah.
Right? He's won everything in Canada.
Yeah.
In the world, basically. He's won so much. Besides Bob, but Bob's from the UK, so I don't know even if he counts, but I'm just joking, Bob. But no, as a Canadian-born guy and coming up through all that, and then you listen to him, what he has to say, and what he's very sensitive to what people are looking for and what's happening, right?
Right. I got to meet him today.
Yeah.
Cody brought him over. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, no kidding. Before we do the short answer questions, are there any topics or things that you like to talk about or a soapbox you want to stand on that we haven't touched on yet, or even advice for people, especially people wanting to get into competing?
You just don't want to pigeonhole yourself. That's all I can say to people. Like, you don't want to be like the certification guy. You don't want to be just only the competitor guy. You need to be well-rounded in everything. You want to be well-rounded in everything. Not everybody can get certification stunts. You don't have to have a certification to be a great farrier, but you also don't have to be super successful in competing. You want to be part of all of those worlds to network with people so that you could know the industry. I mean, this industry is only limited by yourself and what you do.
Yeah.
Right? You're the limiting factor in what you get done in the industry.
Yeah.
So that's why just don't limit yourself, right?
Yeah.
And have a stance. Don't be a pushover either.
Right.
But if you go have a stance, make sure you can prove it.
And you alluded to it in the beginning. AWCF is on your radar, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you have sort of like a game plan for that? Or is that sort of as you run into a lull one year competing and you're like, okay, I think this is when I'm going to.
Yeah, I should have run into a lull during COVID, except I just got caught up in playing polo. So I didn't do my proper diligence and do enough stuff for my AW. That would have been ideal, right?
Yeah.
Probably a lot of people kicking themselves in the butt because they didn't get enough done during COVID. I think we were all just busy shoeing horses and trying to figure out what's left and right.
That was definitely a thing too.
I would love to do my AW and do more. I see different certifications and, I have this philosophy and I should probably follow it more. Maybe you should get a certification a year and make sure you hit like 4 competitions a year.
Right.
There's so many different certification things that you could go out and do, but you want to make sure that you do certain certifications at a certain time and kind of keep piling them up, kind of like what Russ did.
Yeah, right.
Because you don't want to like go all the way through, get your TE, CF, and you get your TE and all that, and then start at the bottom somewhere else and work your way up. And they're like, nah, you ain't good enough. And then you're like a little embarrassed because you're like this CJF therapeutic endorsement dude. You can't get this certification over there.
Right.
Because then you're unbalancing yourself out.
Ratchet it up, but at a similar level kind of thing.
And all it is challenging yourself with the certification stuff, because in Canada or the US, it doesn't really mean anything at all. And that's the thing that bothers me. A lot of people with certifications, they're like, well, can't believe this other person said it. I'm a CJF. And then the other people are like, well, he's a CJF. I can't believe he did that.
Yeah.
You have to live up to it, but you also can't use it as like a soapbox to stand on and be like, I have this certification. I'm way better than everybody else.
Yeah.
Man, you sure got to, like, if you think you're going to do that, you better like keep rocking on, man. Like,
don't rest on those laurels.
And people are going to remember that for like till you're 80.
Yes.
So like, you got a lot of work ahead.
That's right. Yep. You're not wrong.
A lot of work.
Yeah. And time just keeps treading on. And if you're not keeping up with it, there'll be younger people who, if push came to shove and you actually had to go head to head with them, you might not be able to, like, you're a CJF, there's something less than, and then you get into a competition or something where somebody's judging, you might not be able to hold your own against them if you've just rested at that level and never pushed yourself any further, right?
True. Like, I wouldn't hurt my feelings if somebody who is awesome, who's only a CF, kicked my butt in a Farrier contest because they put more time into the, you know what I mean? But I understand where you're coming from on that. Like, if you can't back it, don't tout it.
Yeah.
Right? Because people are just going to knock you off your little pedestal.
Yeah. That is definitely a thing.
Yeah.
For sure. This is the Stratum Tectorium. Short answer questions brought to you by Out West Design and Fabrication. Your choice for Farrier rigs. Your favorite book?
Oh, man. I don't even read that. I listen to audiobooks.
Yeah. Well, what's your favorite audiobook?
Extreme Ownership.
Oh,
Jocko
I love that
Willink.
one. Yeah.
That's a great one.
Yep.
Like, that's my first introduction to him. And I was like, man, you got some good points there.
Yep.
Don't blame the environment or the situation, or it's your lack of skill is your problem. And that's because you didn't do whatever, or, you know, the environment you put yourself in here, or your big mouth, or any of those things. And you weren't subtle enough or diplomatic enough with a client.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've all lost work because of whatever, you know, your strong personality, or you said the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also gained a lot of work because I said the right thing at the right time, and because of my strong personality. So
I was having that conversation, I feel like it was with James when I met him, about how you find your tribe. Like, you're going to lose clients because they're not going to you're just not going to jive at some point.
Yeah, they just don't.
Yeah.
They look at you and they don't like you.
Yeah. And then there'll be others that you just find you and you're like, oh, where have you been all my life kind of thing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And it is like a relationship. I think sometimes even clients or you develop or go in different directions, and then you lose them that way.
Yeah.
So
I could say that with our business in Kelowna, we have a certain type of people that we work for and that love us working for them.
Yeah.
And they're usually professionals who are very busy.
Yeah.
And we take care of them and their horses, run them on a schedule. We remind them when we're coming. We rebook them. Half the time we don't even tell them when we rebook them. We just put it in, but we make sure it's not conflicting with them, and we take care of them and their horse. And they pay us to do that. Yeah. We don't really have time in our business for a lot of I'm going to talk about Fluffy for 30 minutes before I trim it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be an hour-long trim. And if there's things happening, for sure, but some people, they just want that person who has the time to do 6 trims a day and talk to you.
Yeah. And there are farriers who that's
what they do.
Love doing
and that's awesome. There's niches for everybody, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't seem to matter. It always stings a little bit when you lose somebody.
Always does.
Even if you want to.
You should start worrying. Like, if
might
you lose,
become a psychopath.
Well, you probably just lost your edge on being an entrepreneur.
Right.
Because I get terrified every time I'm not at work, I'm not under a horse or anything like that, because you weren't making money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you do your books right, then you aren't terrified, but you always got that little thing in the back of your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you ain't making money at this moment.
Yep.
You know what I'm
to the
talking
choir
about.
here, yeah.
Yep.
It can be a little bit of a problem sometimes. Favorite brand of nails?
I use Law Liberty.
Okay.
Yep.
What shoe sizes do you generally have to stock the most of?
European size, aught and 1.
Okay.
A lot of 1s.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of quarter horses and stuff
No.
in your area? It's jumpers?
Mostly all jumpers, yeah.
Really?
I do almost all jumpers and dressage and polo horses.
Oh, okay.
Some Western horses, some trail horses, some Western horses. Everybody has a handful of barrel racers,
Yeah.
just to,
Just throw in the mix there a little bit. Yeah.
and some people specialize in it. That's great.
Yeah.
And I love that somebody else specializes in it. That's
Right.
perfect.
Yeah.
But I do mostly jumpers.
Okay. Yeah. It's funny how certain areas, the feet, like it depends on who the main breeds have been and who has been brought in kind of thing. It will change the size of shoes no matter what the breed is. It's actually like bloodlines and stuff have affected that, right? In an area.
Yep.
Yeah, because mine I would say are 2s and 3s, and I'm mostly
Oh,
doing hunter
but
jumper.
what style of shoe? Of Kirkhart?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. See, I'm using a 1 Workman, which is a 2
right.
Kirkhart.
You're right. Yeah,
Right?
that's right. And I have started using the Workmans. Well, I started a while back, and yeah, I do put a lot more ones on than I did in the past. You're right. Good point. Favorite Mega Rasp?
I'm using those Heller XLs at the moment.
The Green Tang?
Green Tang. But you know what? I just got the new Dark Horse
Where's
from
that?
Safe Edge.
Oh, yeah, because they're back.
That's the competitive rasp to the Lime Green Tang, right?
Oh, okay.
So I'm excited.
You
I just
see
got
it.
it here at the summit.
Oh,
so
can't wait to get it.
you know
into
it.
the truck. Yeah. Do you have a dream Farrier rig?
I do. I would like a split body. Ideally, I'd like to have run 2 like 3500 GMCs, one with just a flat deck on it, the aluminum flat deck,
Yeah.
with the hidden anvil, and the other one with the aluminum flat deck with the hidden anvil with the shoon box on it. So then I could pull my polo trailer. But if my rig ever breaks down, I just throw
Plunk
it
it
on
on.
the back and I'm good to go.
Right.
Because
Okay.
it sure sucks shoeing out of like a California shoeing rig. When
When you're used to the convenience of the
yeah,
other.
you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, it does. That's a great idea. Favorite rounding hammer?
I'm with an old school pour at the moment.
Are you?
Yeah, Jim pour, yeah.
2 pound?
Yep, 2 pound. Always 2 pound, yeah.
Favorite type of bar stock to work with?
Flat stock, 3/8x1.
It's becoming my new favorite once I figure it all out. Favorite pastime after work?
Playing polo.
I knew you were
Yeah.
going to say that for some
Playing
reason.
polo. All summer is playing polo.
What's the next thing on your bucket list?
Oh, boy. This new World Championships coming up. The Canadians this
Yeah.
year and the new World Championships because it's been too long,
Cool.
right? Because COVID, we're waiting. Yeah. And the World Championships, that hasn't happened forever.
No, yeah, and it kind of sucked that it was almost a thing again, and then
And then COVID
take it
came,
away
right?
from
Yeah.
not cool. Favorite brand of keg shoe?
Workman at the moment.
Ideal number of horses to shoe all around in one day?
The ideal would be 3 stops of 3.
Okay, because you get the break in between, and
You always like the break in between. If you could have 3 horses tied up at the same time in their full sets, someone's always working underneath the horse and not waiting for the other person.
right.
And he could get 9 sets done so quick. That's ideal. And if they're all standing and they're all like horses you've done before,
Yeah.
that'd be ideal.
Right. Okay. The magical day.
Mhm. That's with 2 people, me and Shelby.
Let me know if that ever happens.
It does.
It does?
once in
Really?
a while. Yeah.
Glorious
You're like
day.
1 o'clock. Yeah, I got my 9 sets done. Rock on, man. Yeah.
Cool. Favorite anvil?
I don't know if I have a favorite. I just use what everybody's supplying at the contests.
Okay.
I was doing WCB, so I have 2 WCB setups.
Oh.
Emerson's, but I guess they switched over to the Austinians anvil.
Oh, did they?
So
Yeah.
I guess I'll go to that when my anvil wears out.
Right. Oh man, I've been eyeing that up. I'm pretty sure the booth is getting ready to put a restraining order on me for that anvil. Favorite inspirational quote?
You know what? I liked one I just saw in the hallway there is by Muhammad Ali. I think it's like, I hated every minute of training, but I love being a champion.
I can see why that would ring a bell for you. Yep. Do you have a Farrier Terrier?
No.
No. If you're stumped on a case or need backup, who do you call?
Oh man, if I'm stumped on something, I just call James.
Do you?
Yeah, James Finler. Oh yeah.
Do you have a favorite shoe or package for mystery lameness when the client either doesn't want to pay for a diagnosis or the vet's stumped?
That's hard to say. No.
So many variables.
There's so many variables you can't. Yeah.
What do you use as your planner?
Still paper.
Paper? Yeah.
Yeah, paper book. I don't know. I see people going electronic and,
Well,
and
Russ has.
Russ has after someone stole his book. Who in their world breaks into a Farrier rig and steals someone's shoeing schedule? I guess it only happens to Russ. So far, in the 20 years I've been shoeing horses, no one has stolen my paper book. So I still use it and I like it.
Yeah.
Because you go and schedule everybody in after you shoe them. But sometimes to make everything efficient, you move people around.
Yeah. Right.
So then if you're on sometimes the electronic one, sometimes I don't get around to moving them around until the day before. But if you use an electronic one that automatically sends reminders out, and then it sends them first an email of when their appointment is, and then an email 24 hours before. And then you have a really hard time kind of switching their appointment to make it like more convenient for you.
Yep.
So that's my reason.
I hear you on that. Favorite method of soothing aches and pains?
Hot tub. We bought a hot tub during COVID, and I go in it every day.
Isn't that a wondrous thing?
Oh, it's great.
Now, do you start your day in it or finish it or both?
Start.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, usually coffee in the hot tub.
Yeah.
Wake up, coffee, hot tub.
Yeah.
And then go do something.
I find that first horse, it doesn't hurt so much when you've already loosened up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Favorite drink?
Ironically, I stopped drinking January 1st. So
really?
Now, I was here, I had a near beer, and the Sam Adams IPA is actually...
In a near beer?
In non-alcoholic is really good.
Really?
Or back home, you get those Sunbrews Coronas. It tastes exactly like a Corona.
Oh, really?
Except non-alcoholic, and they're cheap as chips from Costco. You get like 24 for $30.
I haven't seen those.
Yep.
Cheaper than water.
It is cheap. It's almost cheaper than water, yeah. They add vitamin D in it. So it's like...
Oh, it's a health drink.
Yeah.
Huh. Guilt-free drinking. So I've always been asking favorite genre of music, and most people will say a lot. I'll start with favorite genre of music, and then I'll ask you to be more specific and if you have a favorite song.
Anywhere between Irish punk and kind of old school country, like, 90s, 80s, 90s country, and then the old school country, and some big band in there is good too.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, would you have a favorite song in amongst that?
I like Dropkick Murphys, the band.
Yeah.
They're good. And is there one song better than another? Some days not.
Depends on where your
right?
head's
You
at.
could throw some heavy metal in there too, and you're good. Like some Metallica, it's all right.
Yeah.
Why limit yourself?
I don't think that's ever a problem for you. Do you work out?
I do now.
Okay.
I didn't really before. I like to think I kind of did, but I didn't. See, my one brother, he does ultra marathons.
Is this the engineer?
Yeah, the engineer guy. And Shelby, she's done like half marathons and trail runs for years.
Oh, okay.
Right? So then we all like convinced each other to do a trail race in Washington in April. This April coming up.
Oh, okay.
So I started running. So it's a 25-kilometer trail race in the mountains in Ancient Lakes.
Oh, cool.
Park or whatever down there. So I started running. So now I work out 3 days a week or 4 just to make sure that I could do that trail race and not die.
Right. Not die.
And that's also one of the reasons why I stopped drinking, because drinking and then running sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any alcohol consumption and working out sucks.
Yeah. What would you have been if not a farrier?
Probably a broken down cowboy in Manitoba. No, I always wanted to join the military when I was young.
Yeah.
But I was rodeoing, so I didn't. And I ended up breaking like my leg and ankle and stuff when I was about 17. So that stopped me from joining the military.
Right.
Yeah. And my dad didn't like the military at all. Or else I would have been in the military.
Okay. And the last question, the COVID question, if you were stuck in a shop with somebody for a month, who would you want it to be?
It'd have to be somebody cool who I don't really know, so I don't scare him right away. Tom Peterson, he's a pretty cool dude.
Yeah.
Get along with him all right. I'd love to pick his brain a bit because he's pretty well-rounded and he's getting after it, lately. I like Tom Peterson.
Okay.
I get stuck in for a month in a shop with him. That'd be all right. Yeah, drink some beers, make some shoes. Drink some more beers, make some shoes. Try to get out, go sledding up the mountains, or skiing.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks for taking the time to do this. That's great.